attending a country musical festival, killing at least 59 and leaving more than 500 wounded. I'm joined now by Republican Danny Tarkanian, Nevada. He is now running for Senate in the primary, the Republican primary against incumbent Dean Heller. And Mr. Tarkanian, first, how do you make sense of what happened here in the wee hours of the morning?
Yeah, there's no way to make sense with it. It's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to this town, by far the worst thing that's happened to this town. It's always been a big fear of people that have lived here that there would be a mass shooting or some type of mass killing by, we would have thought, an international terrorist, not somebody that lived in Mesquite. So everybody's in shock. My wife is just it's hard to put into words the sadness and the feelings that we have today.
You mentioned international terrorism, and obviously there was worry or concern or thoughts earlier today that might bear out. Do you think that if it had been international terrorism, there would be very concrete calls from people in your party and from all parties for policy action against, say, ISIS? Would that result in some channeling of the grief and the anger into some concrete calls for policy?
So you think that some policy passed by Congress would stop an ISIS terrorist attack? Is that what you're suggesting? Look, my mother's on the city council here in Las Vegas. She gets briefed regularly by Homeland Security. They have told her that there are all kinds of terrorist cells out there that they've been monitoring and that there's a big risk that something like this would happen here. And when I first heard that this happened this morning when I got up, I said, oh my goodness, something happened like they had warned her. And then, we're finding, well, it probably is not that case. It's somebody that just lived 45 minutes from here.
Right, and then I think the question then becomes, and there are Senate Democrats today who are talking about guns, and Chris Murphy, who represents Connecticut, where Newtown happened, and things like that. That in the absence of that there's some concrete things that Congress could do to reduce the incidence of gun violence and mass shootings in this country. Is that something you think is achievable? I guess is a question before you think whether it's advisable.
Look, I think that anytime an activity like this can happen in our country, it's wrong, and something needs to be done to stop it. But the bodies aren't even cold yet, and we're going to sit here and politicize this thing? I mean, why don't you wait until there's some time for the people to grieve and get over this, and then you can figure out exactly how did this guy get the guns? How did he get 10 guns like that? Did he break the law to get them? Are you going to pass laws that are going to stop someone from breaking the laws? I mean, we don't even know what happened yet. I think the best thing to do is, one, focus on the great work people here in Las Vegas did, first with the police officers and the firemen, helping to minimize what the shooter was able to do, the incredible work by all the people in the hospitals and the emergency rooms, the people that are giving blood out. It's 4 hours just to get for you to wait in line just to give blood here in Las Vegas. The churches are involved. I'm going to a vigil at 6 o'clock at my church. We're doing some wonderful things in this community to try to minimize this horrendous act that happened here. There's going to be time to politicize this later on, and if there are solutions, to come up with those solutions.
And I understand and respect what you're going through here. I just want to follow up on that question, politicize, because when a murderer killed dozens of people at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, the President of the United States, a man who you support and whose support you boasted of, called for banning 1 billion people worldwide in the wake of that, and the bodies hadn't even been identified. Isn't that politicizing too?
I think you love to misquote President Trump, and that's all good and well for your viewership. But I'm not going to get into that today when this has been the worst tragedy that's happened in my city, and you want to start taking pot shots at the president. Let's talk about what's happened here, what our city's going through, and what we're trying to do to get through this really, really difficult period of time.
Sir, I have to say, I've covered a lot of these, and my hope, and I think the hope of every other citizen, is to find some way that we don't have to cover any more of these, whether here in Vegas or in Orlando or in San Bernardino or in Oregon or anywhere else.
Yeah, and I don't think that Senator Malarkey, with all the malarkey he was saying, came up with any solutions that would have stopped these type of mass murders that you're talking about. Well, it was a bunch of malarkey, what he was saying. I mean, if this guy broke the law to get the guns to kill people, then how do you figure passing new laws are going to prevent someone from doing this? He's already breaking the laws. When you're murdering somebody, you're breaking one of the worst laws you can do. It's like you guys think you can legislate human decency and evilness, and you can't.
All right. Mr. Tarkanian, thank you for making time tonight. And again, the whole country's grieving with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Still to come, my colleague